And no joke, when I first used this template, I think I finished a song in like 8 hours. It used to take me days, weeks, months to even finish songs. Templates for your DAW only work if they're made custom for you. I didn't make this video to give you some free download that claims to fix all your problems, nor did I make this video for lazy producers. I'm making it for the music producers who want to work for their results, who want to finish more music in less time and change their trajectory for good. That's what I'm here to help you with, and I really can't wait to show you this, so let's just dive right in. I'm going to open up a blank canvas and I want you to follow along. It doesn't matter if you're not in Ableton, you could be using FL, Logic, this will apply for all DAWs. For the first one, this is the most important. It's think of what are those specific things you do every time you open up the DAW, and then figure out, can these things be done once and then never again? That's what we're looking for. Let's hop to the next one, and an easy thing you could set up is BPM. I know this will fluctuate from song to song, but if you generally live in a certain BPM range, there's nothing wrong with setting it up because by default, Ableton always starts at 120 BPM. Okay, the third tip I have for you are these arrangement markers. You'll see I have them labeled intro, break, build, drop. You can label these however you'd like, but they're there for me to drag and quickly start to have an arrangement take place in my song. I'm big on this. I like to arrange early because to me, a song is your idea structured over time. It's not an 8-bar loop. So having these ready to go, it makes me think about the arrangement way sooner than I typically would. For the fourth tip, let's talk about synths to start. And what I mean by this is preloading up some of your favorite synths so they're ready to go. In this case, you'll notice my personal favorites I like to write with are Diva, Serum, Repro. I also like to have a piano, which I typically use in Nexus. And these are just there for me to quickly write. They're my go-tos. Why do I have to load them up every time? I'm going to do it anyways. Do it once, never have to do it again. For my fifth tip, let's talk about a kick track. Pretty much every song I make is gonna have a kick drum in it. I assume it's the same for you. I do like to create this track, program the MIDI in, and I keep a sampler on this track so I could just drag and drop a kick when I'm ready to go and the MIDI's already there for me. Now for the sixth tip, this is something I like to do, but I think it might work for you as well. It's a filtered kick drum. Usually at some point in my song, whether it's the breakdown or an intro outro, I do like to filter the kick, take out some low end, take out some high end, where I can then, once I have my final kick, print it onto this track, and I already have a filter ready to go. Before I move on to number 7, I actually want you to chime in and let me know in the comments, what is your biggest time saver? What would you add to this template that maybe I haven't mentioned in this video? Let me know in the comments, let everyone else know in the comments. It'll be helpful. On to number 7, and that is going to be creating a drum group. For me personally, you're gonna see that I like to start off with top loops. So I create these audio channels that I could drag and drop a top loop in. For me, it gives me the rhythm and groove much quicker than if I had to program things out. I'll do that later. But I also do like to have 2 MIDI channels ready to go with either samplers or drum racks on them, and this is where I can program some things like claps or hats or percussion. While I'm here, I can also color all of these drum channels the same and group them. The one thing I do want to add with coloring, you should pick a color scheme for every single project that is the same, and you just stick with it. So no matter what project you open, you see the colors, you know exactly what group it is. Okay, so then for number 8, let's just clean up something we did before. Let's grab those synths and let's group them, color them, just like we did for the drums. Number 9 is a big one to your custom template. This is going to be setting up delays and reverbs on sends and returns. In my own template, I like to have 3 reverbs, and I think about them in terms of depth. So I have a short, medium, and long reverb. And what I mean by this is the decay time. So to start, I'm going to look for a short reverb. This could be some sort of room or plate, but this is typically under 1 second, maybe even like half a second or less. And this is great for drums, sometimes even a synth. Then I'm going to look for a medium space. This could be anywhere from 1 second to 2 seconds, 3 seconds, something along those lines. But this usually works for bigger sounds in the mix. Think about your instruments. It can sometimes also be like a clap or a snare, usually something that you want to take up a little more space in the mix. The final reverb is going to be this long one, and it's really used for effect. This is like a 5 to 10 second reverb that can be used in breakdowns when you have a lot of available space. It's also cool sometimes when you automate this up during a buildup and it creates this wash of noise behind the track. But either way, you have nice depth and balance between the short, medium, and long. Then let's move on to number 10, which is going to be our delays that we will put on these return channels. Truthfully, just pick some ones that you like. So for example, it could be stereo or ping pong. You could choose different rates and times that you like. So I'll start with maybe a 16th note type delay. Then I could do something like an 8th note or a dotted 8th. I always do like the dotteds. It adds a bit more groove. And then I can also have like a quarter note or a half note. This is good when you want to like repeat a full word or a musical phrase. Really just pick your poison here. You could also change these later when you get into the mix down or whatever it is. All right, on to number 11, which is going to be the master channel. I look at it in a couple categories: effects, processing, referencing, and metering. Let's start with the effects. For this, you'll see I have things like Endless Smile or this DJ style effects rack. These are cool multi-effects plugins that allow me to almost simulate if I were DJing and get those quick effects on my whole entire song. I do have this cool MIDI twister I use, so I just macro up Endless Smile or like the delay or reverb on that DJ effects rack, and I could kind of simulate as if I were playing this out live. I think it's really helpful. Next up, I'm going to put a limiter on my master. This will just be for when I quickly want to reference it at 0 dB and compare like a rough master to another song. Then I'm going to have span, which is my spectrum analyzer. This is what I personally use to look at the frequency spectrum. Free plugin. If you don't already have it, definitely get it. It's awesome. All right, then we jump to the referencing side, which is going to be metric AB. This is what I use to compare my song to other songs. It allows me to quickly flip between up to 16 different tracks, and I could use my ears. I could also look at some other measurables. Great plugin though, probably something I can't mix without. Then you'll see I have Smexoscope. You're probably wondering what the I just said. I'm gonna type it and put it on the screen. This is a free oscilloscope plugin that allows me to see the real-time waveform. Finally, I round off my master channel with a loudness meter and a mono maker. To give you one extra bonus tip, think about what you can set up hotkeys for. I do a lot of this on my master channel, so I will actually hotkey metric A and B, so I don't have to open the plugin and I could flip between my song, reference song, my song, reference song. I also like to hotkey my mono maker, so I press one key, my entire mix goes to mono. By now, your custom template's looking pretty good, but for number 12, let's think about adding processing to some of those channels and groups we did create earlier. So if you realize that you always process a group a certain way with a certain compressor or saturator, however it is you work, if you can set that up now, you don't have to set it up later, and you don't have to leave these plugins on. They could remain off. So for example, I'll give you a drum group thing. Like I like to use the API 2500. I like to use a certain tape saturator. I may want a clipper on there, but if I find that those specific plugins always end up on that group or channel, let's just set it up, leave them off, and I could always turn them on when I need them. Number 13 is one I preach over and over in these videos, but it is setting up default channels in your DAW. When you open up an audio or a MIDI track, it can come preloaded with whatever plugins you'd like on there. Then for 15, let's just talk about organization. Pretty much every DAW has a way for you to organize some of your favorite plugins into specific groups or categories. Ableton calls theirs collections. You can also organize your sample packs and folders. For example, having a best samples folder, which is your handpicked samples. Or you'll also see I live out of this reference track folder. Anytime I need a reference track, I come here and it's already labeled by key and BPM. These may take a little bit of time to build, but it's worth it. It makes a big difference. Okay, so at this point, I am going to save this as a template, and I could save it as my default template. Now, when I open up my DAW, it's going to come preloaded with all of these things we just set up. Keep in mind though, this template should evolve as you evolve. So the first version you make of this probably isn't going to be that good. You're going to see what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and keep adjusting this template until you find the right combination that allows you to work quick. Although finishing music is extremely important, we want it to sound professional. If your productions currently don't sound professional or flat out, they just sound bad, I think I know why. Tap the video on screen, I'll meet you over there, and the answer I have is not what you're expecting.